Hey, nerds. Welcome to the show. Colton, Riley, how are you guys doing? Basketball's a little slow right now. What are you guys doing to fill the time?
I just got done with a little weekend run with Vinter C, my band. Got to play up and down the West Coast. Got to British Columbia for the second time. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. I have a kid.
That's all you need to say.
A lot of fun.
Yeah. So there was some basketball news, I guess. The Today, pretty much it broke. James Harden, the drama for the Philadelphia 76ers gets
Oh,
worse. Today while he was in China,
Aina.
James Harden called Daryl Morey, the 76ers GM, a liar and that he wouldn't be on a team with them. As Colton pointed out pre-podcast, might be pandering to the Chinese government a little bit. I didn't even think about the Morey China connection there while he was saying it, but that seems like it's going to be pretty hard to repair that relationship going forward.
what an interesting juxtaposition when you compare it to the Dame situation. It's like I'm glad Dame's not going scorched earth like that yet, because now his trade value is zero. Harden's is. I mean, it's bad because he says he just won't play. He's gonna sit out, which means he's gonna, not get paid. But also, it's just hilarious. He said it twice. He's like,
Yeah.
not play for an organization that Daryl Morey is a part of. I'm going to say that again. So obviously, he was probably made promises regarding his contract. He probably sacrificed a little bit on the last contract to get into this one, or maybe Daryl said he would give him more years on his deal if he opted into this year or something like that. But obviously, he's mad that he didn't get to go into free agency. It sounds like he was promised something and he wasn't given it, which when it comes to money is tough. So I get why he's frustrated, but funny stuff all around.
Yeah, and it is like there's a lot of parallels between this and the Dame situation because of the fact that he's only willing to go to one team. He's been, pretty clear that he doesn't want to play for anybody else. And it makes me wonder if this is going to be another situation where the NBA gets involved. And again, does that even mean anything? Or is that just sort of lip service at this point? Because, it's damage is done. He's going to go to the Clippers or he's not going to play anywhere. And yeah, like you said, that puts Philly in a really tough spot because what's his trade value on the open market when there is no open market? And yeah, it's an interesting thing the NBA is grappling with this summer. Doesn't seem like the league memo did a whole lot of good for the Harden situation. But yeah, it does seem also like the place of it and everything is kind of interesting. Like he went over there to commiserate with the Chinese over their hate of Daryl Morey. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be reporting to camp at this point, which maybe Dame will for the Blazers. I don't see that happening for James. And it might get ugly for them because I've heard that the 76ers might block Harden from doing anything, signing with any other team, moving on in any way if he's not willing to play ball. So.
Yeah, I hadn't heard the Clippers thing. Interesting. Other piece of news that came out today, another head shaker, in my opinion. The new top broadcast team for ESPN and ABC, and I assume they'll be doing the finals as well. Mike Breen, the legend. I'll take him all day. But his new broadcast partners are Doris Burke and Doc Rivers. Speaking of Philadelphia 76ers misfortune. Yeah, I don't love that broadcast team. I've during COVID, the NBA YouTube channel was putting out some old broadcasts from like 20 years ago to keep fans watching basketball. And I watched a few games with Doc Rivers, and I didn't love his broadcast style. His voice wasn't even really the issue back then. He didn't have the hoarse voice. I don't really know what happened over the last 20 years where he's had such a hoarse voice, but it was more his calls. In fact, I thought it was pretty funny. A lot of times he would say something and then like a minute later, something in direct contradiction to what he said would happen. So he'd like say, they need to foul here. And then they would foul him and the guy would throw up a shot and get a 4-point play and totally change the tide of the game. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting at the very least, I guess, to see Rivers back in that position. And people have been calling for Doris to get this spot for a while now. People really love her for whatever reason. I'm not the biggest fan in the world, but I'm really gonna miss Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson too. I don't know where he's ends up, but I like those guys. I like the three of them. I like their chemistry. So, yeah, moving forward, that'll be the broadcast team.
I'm going to keep my thoughts short and sweet on this one. I was agreeing with you up until the end. I was okay with them leaving. Just put the TNT crew on the finals. Who would be mad about that? Who would be mad about like
the ESPN shareholders,
well,
ABC shareholders? They would be a bit upset.
But like put like Kevin Harlan on there. If you need to get a different crew in there, that's I love Mike Breen, but
they work for a different company though. Like
I know that's how it goes. But then you could have the TNT crew at halftime discussing the game, the finals games, rather than stopping in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm just saying I like it.
Good luck prying that away from Disney.
I'm not saying it's happening. I'm just
Disney's falling apart enough as it is. They're not giving up the finals too.
I agree with that, but that's my wish.
Yeah, I just, thanks. I hate it. It's going to be a disaster, in my opinion. I mean, I just can't imagine that they're going to have great chemistry right off the bat. And I feel like chemistry is sort of the least of their problems. Doc Rivers might have the worst voice that any human being has at this point in his life. And I don't know if it's going to get better when he's not screaming over, the crowd all the time. But I imagine he's still going to get excitable. And it's going to be like really hard on the ears, like people with misophonia who can't stand like the sounds of scratching and stuff. They're going to be yelling from the other room at their husband to turn it off because it's garbage. And Doris really just doesn't have good thoughts on basketball. So I just don't see that really being a big value add either.
Put us on the game. Come on. Forget TNT crew. We can be the commentators for this. Don't you shake your head, Colton.
You take it.
you take the gig. One last little piece that I saw on Instagram that I thought was funny. Stephen A was on the Playoff P podcast talking about if he could take back one thing from his career, if he could change one thing about his career, he would change the Kwame Brown comments. He said that he didn't. It was before Twitter and before social media, and he didn't know that it would follow both of them around for so long, that there'd be memes about it and everything going on about it this long after. And apparently he was saying that he's heard from Kwame that Kwame's quite hurt about it. So I thought that was worth mentioning, considering that has been a point in our podcast ever since we started. That quote in that video is it's just legendary within sports talk circles. And I thought it was funny that probably his most famous moment he regrets. I guess that comes with the territory of being kind of a hot take commentator like that.
He probably hurt Kwame's career, honestly, by just doing that. I mean, Kwame actually was in the league for a while. It's not like he flamed out right off the bat, but that set his reputation just because of how crazy it was. So, yeah, I would be mad if I was Kwame too. I get it. But
Kwame was funny. He was better than Anthony Bennett. I'll give him that.
By far.
All right. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes here. The real topic of conversation today. We're going to talk about the Blazers, but we're not going to be talking about the Blazers guards. Or are we? Yes, we probably will, because that's all the Blazers have, are guards. So we're going to be talking about the small forward position, in particular, the potential position battle between Matisse Thybulle and Nasir Little. Thybulle signed an extension or re-signed this summer with the Blazers. Nasir Little, I saw him in at Summer League, kind of talking about how he wants to take the next step. Maybe, I mean, at this point, he's like a veteran on the team. He's only 23 years old, but he's probably been around longer than most people on the team. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see those two kind of go head to head. And one more, although last year we thought Nasir was going to be more defensive oriented, and it kind of ended up being the other way around. He was more offensive, more impressive on the offensive end. So this year, I mean, if we're taking that into consideration, I would say Thybulle, kind of the defensive guy, Nasir, the offensive guy. And it'll be interesting to see how those minutes are split up among other players. Chris Murray, the rookie, Jeremy Grant maybe slides down there if depending on how things shake out on the roster, if another big gets added potentially. And I could see Shaedon Sharpe also getting minutes at the small forward position, talking about those guards that I was mentioned just a little bit ago. What do you guys think?
Well, I was gonna say Shaedon. I could see Shaedon starting, and we're going with the 3-guard lineup again. At least he's 6'6". He's bigger than the 3-guard lineups we've tried in the past, where we had Norman Powell at the 3. But yeah, I could definitely see them starting Shaedon because they need to get Simon's minutes, they need to get Scoot minutes, they need to get Sharp minutes. All 3 of them have like a claim to starting, in my opinion. So they might just solve the problem by starting them all, which I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go. I think next man up would be Thybulle, just to bring the defense. And, we need the defense, obviously. I don't even need to break that down anymore, really. But it's going to be interesting to see who has the bigger impact between Thybulle and Nasir Little. Sharp's going to get minutes, definitely. And I'm just interested to see who's going to make the bigger impact at the small forward position between Nasir Little and Thybulle. Like, who's going to – I mean, Thybulle, we know what he does. And he actually shot better than we thought he would after he became a Blazer. He shot a respectable percentage. I'm not going to – don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 36% from 3 after he got traded here. That's an acceptable percentage. That is for a defensive specialist like him on catch and shoots. So I'm just saying it's going to be interesting to see. Last year, I could have swore Nasir was going to be that guy coming in, and it was Josh Hart, which Riley was right. I was wrong. Nasir Little needs some consistency. We know it. He needs to stay healthy. And this could all go down the drain with the Dame trade. We could be getting a new starter at small forward or center. So we'll see what happens with that. But it's going to be an interesting battle.
Quick note that I thought is kind of funny here looking at this. Obviously, so I'll just say it right off the bat. Nasir Little is 6'5", Matisse Thybulle is 6'5", Shaedon's 6'6". So actually he's the tallest of the 3. Obviously, that doesn't mean everything. It's a lot of it's about body type and skill set and that sort of thing. But he actually is the tallest of the 3. Is he also the heaviest? He's 200 pounds. Thybulle's 201. Nasir's 220. So all pretty similar size. All a little bit small for the small forward position, probably. But again, that's not necessarily the be all end all.
Yeah, I tend to think of Nasir as being the one whose body is maybe the most like what you want from a small forward, and he is about 20 pounds heavier. It kind of makes sense. Thybulle has also proven that he can defend a little bit bigger throughout his career. And so I don't really mind him being the defensive specialist on some of the 3s. And yeah, when you have a tall 3, a bigger guy, maybe Jeremy has to slide down. My fear is that if we run a 3-guard lineup, because Shaedon, he's a tall guard, but he's definitely a guard. But if we run that 3-guard lineup and, then the problem is just going to be the same problem that we've seen for like a decade plus now, which is just not enough size, not enough defense. And ESPN, which I mean, this is unofficial and things will change, but the ESPN depth chart has, Shaden potentially at small forward, like as the starting small forward. So obviously it depends on what happens with Dame and Anthony and all that. But that's a little bit concerning to me because that's something that we're hoping to avoid as Blazer fans. The one thing I will say is that this year, we've talked about this year's not going to be our championship year. And so if we need to do some experimenting to develop these guys, like if we need to play Scoot, Anthony, and Shaden for a while just to develop them and try to get some value under Anthony to trade him and make sure that all three of them can play serious minutes, that's okay, theoretically. But on a championship team, or even a playoff team, I just don't think Shaden's the starting three. He's more of a guard.
Who's a dark horse in all of this? That I actually think it's not ridiculous. The idea of him starting some games is Chris Murray. Yeah. He's a pretty polished rookie. What is he, 22, 23 years old? Yep. His brother obviously came right into the league and was a starter. And he could kind of be maybe that Nick Batum where he starts off the games, see how he does, see if he can hit some shots and space the floor. And if he's not doing well, then maybe you could go to the Pine for one of those other guys and not really get many big minutes that game. But that wouldn't really shock me if Murray actually ended up starting and they brought in some of those other guys as early bench options.
That's a good point. I don't know if Chauncey's going to start the rookie right off the bat like that. We'll see what happens. But so if Shaden and Scoot don't start, who do you got coming off the bench? Because it's not going to be Ant because he's the one that's making the big money. And I think Scoot needs to start. And I mean, we know Shaden. We want Shaden to start because he's been so promising. That's the problem. Like, that's why there's this guard issue. You guys know it. We know it. We've seen it for years. There's always that one extra guard that lines up in the right spot. Like if Ant was the young up and comer and we had two established guards, you could have him be the scoring sixth man. But if Dame's gone, Ant's the established guy. So he's going to get a starting spot. I think Scoot needs a starting spot because he's started for 2 years on a professional team. What do you guys think?
It is hilarious that even with Damian Lillard not being on the team next year in all likelihood, they still have the problem of having too many guards on the team. And yeah, just the same it's almost like very little changed with Dame going off the team and Scoot joining the team. And I think it boils down to they're eventually going to have to trade one of the three. My choice would be Anthony Simons, as you guys all probably know. But I don't think that'll happen right off the bat. I think that he'll probably start early in the season, hopefully to raise his trade value. And I think, unfortunately, Shaden's going to be the one that comes off the bench. I've said for a while now, I think he should be an automatic starter, but the scenario does kind of present a difficult situation. I think probably if I had to predict, if nothing changes in the roster configuration, which I think it probably will change, but I think that they probably will start the three guards because winning just doesn't really matter that much this season. It's more about developing those players. And I think you probably would see Shaden as the small forward. Hopefully that doesn't hurt his long-term development. Maybe it'll help his long-term development. Who knows?
Yep, I was pretty much gonna say the same thing. So yeah, I agree. My fear again is that Shaden's gonna get stuck in this 3 role, and there's gonna be this question for years about whether he can play the 3 or whether he needs to be the 2. And I mean, my answer is trade Anthony, but for a bigger guy. But that's easier said than done. I understand we have to get the right value for him, and we might have to play him for a while to build him up. And again, if we're just doing that, if we're just testing guys out and trying to build trade value, fine, do the 3 guard lineup for a while, but no more than a year, please. Not again.
I know a lot of people. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, look at us talking about Blazers guards again. We just got caught down the twisty twirly wormhole of Blazers guard conversation.
Well, that kind of ties in what I was going to say. I mean, we don't really have a starting wing right now. So the fact of the matter is that's probably why Joe's trying to hold out to figure something out to get that young wing prospect. And I don't, who knows? Like you said, the roster probably will change. We might even start the season with like signing a vet or two just to fill some holes, just until we can complete the Dame trade. It's going to be so interesting what the Dame trade brings back, and whether it's a couple of picks, more pick oriented, or if it's we actually can find a way to get a good young wing and slot him in. That might, clear the waters a little bit. We'll be able to kind of, maybe we'll get a surefire starter or prospects that we want to see starting. I know Chris Murray's a prospect that we could see that could be promising, but like, you never know with what that Dame trade is going to be. It's kind of like a mystery box right now. So all this could change. I don't think any of the other players are going to go out when Dame goes out. So I don't think Ant's going to go out right after Dame. I think, like we've talked about, he'll probably play to raise his trade value, but we're not going to know. We're not going to know like the final roster.
This isn't small forward related, but do you think Nurk could be a play that goes out with Dame?
I do think Nurk will go out, trade with Dame.
Just wanted to clarify that.
No, yeah, totally. And then there'll be a hole at center. The front court's still pretty thin. We heard this before, right? It's a lot of younger players like Jabari Walker, Chris Murray, that kind of thing, holding down the fort. No bona fide starters, no bona fide scrubs. Stephen A. Smith, right? So we'll see what happens, but I do think that there's going to be holes again this season. But like you've said, this isn't the year to go all in, so it's not the biggest problem. As long as we can reconstruct the roster to go on the right path to stop playing 3-guard lineups. Please just go that route. After this, after we finally put every piece in place, please stop playing 3-guard lineups. That's all I ask. Please.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation of what we do with the gaping hole at the center position is a conversation for a whole other video that I'm sure we'll get to.
Maybe we should just reframe this video as the Blazers depth chart right now, because things are going to be probably so different by the start of the season. It's like, we can't talk about the center position if we want to, but it's hard to even have a conversation about this right now. Like, outside of Nurk, we got John Butler and Baji are the backup centers. So that could be another position or another situation where they sign a vet, like you mentioned, Colton. The Jeremy Grant question of if he's going to be playing power forward and can he play power forward. Man, the Blazers roster is kind of a mess right now, and it begs a lot of questions. But it's also exciting. I mean, we have the great good fortune of having Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe right there, to build the team around, and another young, dynamic player who could potentially, hopefully, bring in more trade assets with Anthony Simons. So there's a lot to be excited about, but it is a mess to look at the depth chart and try to make heads or tails of it right now.
It's almost impossible to envision what the team's going to look like on opening day right now, because we don't even know if Damian Lillard is going to be on the team. Like, that's up in the air. One, top 75 player of all time may or may not show up. Like, what a huge weight hanging over our heads. And then you get into the problems with Anthony and, where's Jeremy going to play? And are we even going to have a center on the team? A bona fide center. I mean, it's crazy right now, and it makes it really hard to do these types of videos. But it is interesting to talk about the possibilities, because right now the future is wide open for the Blazers. The future is wide open for Blazer fans. We have no idea whose jerseys we're going to be sporting in a few months, and speculation's kind of fun.
I wonder what the gift store looks like right now, whose jerseys they have up there right now, and how they're if they're still selling Lillard jerseys there. Yeah, the Moda Center in October and November. It's going to be a fascinating scene, man. What that team's going to look like, what the fans are going to be like, what the kind of morale of the fans are going to be. You got any tickets, Colton? Are you too busy?
Well, I would like to see what the roster looks like before I get tickets. They're
Yeah.
like calling me saying, "Do you want like quarter season tickets?" I'm like,
Please
well,
buy our tickets.
who's going to be playing? Me? Like, I don't know who's on the team. I'm not going to buy season tickets when who knows what the roster is going to look like. Are you crazy? But I mean, they have to sell tickets. But it's funny, like you scroll through, Facebook, for example. Not that big on Facebook, but every once in a while you scroll through Facebook. The Blazers have like an ad, right? And it's funny, no Dame featured on those ads, of course. It's Jeremy Grant or Shaden Sharp.
I was gonna say they're like their top face right now of the franchise. The guy that I've seen on the advertisements is Billups. He's like the guy that they're selling the team around, selling the fans on is Billups, and who knows if he'll even be the Blazers coach in the long term. I mean, that's a whole other question too. Is he going to be the coach of the future? He was really brought on, to try to get Dame to the next level, and that didn't really pan out. And so he's kind of in it in a different role, developing players. He's shown some signs of being able to do that. I mean, Simons developed in his first year under Billups at least, but it will be really interesting to see what Billups is able to do with Scoot and Shaden, and maybe that could end up being his calling card as developer of young players. But it's hard to say if even he'll be around for the long term.
It is kind of interesting too, because one of the reasons I think that the Blazers moved on from Stotts was this idea that Stotts was such a good development coach, but not really a finisher coach. And we were like in this place with Dame where we were trying to figure out, okay, who's going to take Dame to the title? Who's going to be Dame, Steve Kerr, whatever. And honestly, now we need development again. So will be interesting to see whether Billups can become that development coach, or whether we have to go try to find a new Terry Stotts, because he's probably not coming back. But yeah, I agree that it is interesting. Like Billups is basically the face of the organization right now because we have no idea who's going to be, what's the product that we're putting on the floor. I'm sure that, like Colton was saying, the Blazers marketing teams and everything, they're probably in a panic themselves right now, like trying to get people to buy tickets when they don't even know what the product on the floor is going to be. And like you said, Kirby, with the jerseys, and they're like, what are you even selling? What are you pushing? Trying to be a business, trying to run the team as a business when you don't know what your product is has to be really difficult.
And then to take it up another level, you're talking about business. We don't even have like a steady ownership. We have an ownership that's supposed to sell the team within a certain amount of time. I don't fully understand all of the ramifications of that, but it's owned by a trust that's eventually supposed to sell the team is kind of what I've garnered from that. So again, it's like the ownership, the GM is in the air, the coach is in the air, the team, the superstar, everything's hanging in limbo for the Blazers right now. It's a crazy time to be a fan. But with all that being said, there's still an exciting future ahead, I think. I still think that they've done an amazing job drafting the last couple of years, and that's really saved their bacon big time. Because if they didn't have Scoot Henderson, if they didn't have Shaden, which is thanks to the tanking, if they wouldn't have tanked the last couple of years, they would be in such a worse situation, because I don't think there would be any other assets that we would have instead of them, and Dame would still probably, in all likelihood, want out. So
couple things. I just cut you off, but
no
couple
worries.
things. You guys mentioned the face of the franchise. I think Scoot is going to come in and be the face of the franchise right off the bat.
I hope, man.
His energy, he's going to be like the rising tide. He's going to bring everybody up. I'm telling you, you can sense the energy. He's going to bring it. He's going to be on everybody on the team. He will be the face of the franchise from day one. That's why he needs to start. Anybody who says he comes off the bench, no. You got to go watch more on the kid. He needs to start. He will set the tone. Another thing, you guys are talking about Chauncey, being a development guy. Well, we know he's good at one thing. He's a great tank commander. He makes so many crucial, minute adjustments at the end of last season, like in that Spurs game. He was like benching players left and right if they did one good play. It was spectacular tanking. It was spectacular to watch. And then we somehow lost that game. It was incredible tanking. The final thing, touching on your other point. Yes, we are in such a good spot going into a rebuild. We kind of had some rebuild years already. It would be nice if we had that wing or center prospect, obviously. I've said this before. Look at the Wizards. The Wizards have been so meh or bad every year, and they always draft 8th or 9th. The Pacers are kind of falling into that trap. The Magic got, Banchero last year. Finally, they broke through. But we needed to do this. We needed to set ourselves up for the future. It was hard and it sucked. I don't like watching losing ball, but you know what's worse than watching losing ball? Is watching losing ball and having no good, exciting young players. Just look at the Washington Wizards starting lineup going into their rebuild. Look at the Blazers. Let me just every Blazer fan that's sad about going into rebuild, it could be so much worse. It really could.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit depressing, like you said, to be in that position of, being excited about how good our coach is at losing. But I do understand what you're saying, because otherwise the Blazers would be in a world of hurt, and there are teams out there that are in that position. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a ton of limbo, but there's also a ton of opportunity, uncertainty and opportunity. So I'm still excited to be a Blazer fan. I think the next couple of years are going to be great. We do need to get some talent that's not tiny, because right now we've got a bunch of good guards and Jeremy Grant, who may or may not be a star player. It seems pretty unclear. We thought that he was at a different level when we got him than he seems to be playing at. I think partly that's because he's been playing out of position, but I don't have a ton of faith that he's good enough to be on the banner ad to try to sell tickets, season tickets. And that's kind of what we have right now. So Scoot is very, very exciting. He's also very young and untested. So, things change when people get into the league and run into LeBron at 75 miles an hour. And suddenly,
have you looked at his body, though?
Looks incredible.
He is cut. He's jacked. Like I keep saying, shouting from the rooftops, he's probably one of the most NBA-ready point guard prospects or guard prospects or prospects in general at that age ever. 2 years professional ball. Yes, it's the G League, but not a lot of young players have that experience leading a group of guys at that young of age. So, yes, you're right. And he's not going to be MVP first season, or maybe he is, right? That'd be cool. But I think he's going to come out and be explosive as long as he stays healthy. People are going to be like, wow. They're going to fall in love with Scoot the very first season, guaranteed.
I really hope that you're right. There's just always you can't rest too much of your future on one kid who hasn't even really played in an NBA game yet, because Who knows? He might have a bum Achilles, or, just something that hasn't really been tested.
Don't
like
you
that.
Say that.
Yeah.
Don't you put that evil on us, Riley.
Come on.
Okay. Knocking on wood, but I'm just saying that, we need other guys on the team other than just a superstar who's super young, because, superstar potential who's super young, because you can't put all your eggs in one basket. We've kind of seen that for years now.
Not to put you guys on the spot here. If you guys don't have an answer, that's fine. Just be honest. But is there any free agent out there that would, low cost, good chemistry sort of free agent that you guys would be interested in? I'm looking at the list right now, and
it was rumored that the Blazers were interested in buying out, I want to say it's Edie Tavares, and he's a center prospect, or not a prospect. He's kind of on the older side, actually, but he basically would be a buyout because he's playing overseas. Think he plays for Real Madrid. But he got offered a contract by the Blazers, I believe, but I think that they're working on the buyout side of things. I don't know. I don't know if he's kind of a stopgap, but he's a big dude. He is. I'm trying to find his. He's 31 years old, so he's definitely not a young guy. But I think that he's a guy that they're going to bring in to just kind of. He's 7'3".
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he's pretty good over there. He's come over to the NBA a couple times, but I think that's one guy we were looking at, and I don't know if it's telling that he's a center prospect, and that means, or not prospect. I keep saying prospect, but a center, and I don't know if that means that Nurkic is on the way out. But that's one guy I know that we were looking at. But we'll see what other kind of vets Joe has up his sleeve.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be hard to fill out the roster for Joe until that trade is made. So I think the safest thing you can do is just get good chemistry guys, guys that are going to help the team chemistry be good in the locker room, support Scoot and Shaden and help them grow and mature as players.
Get mentors.
Yeah, for real. Guys that maybe, have some winning experience of some kind or just experience as a professional for a number of years. But yeah, it's a tough situation right now. Looking at this roster, looking at the situation the Blazers are in, exciting and glimmers of hope, but very confusing and pretty messy to try to make heads or tails of what's coming this season. Either way, though, we'll be here breaking it down. Thanks for watching the video. It was a little bit messy, but it's a little bit messy right now to be a Blazers fan. That's just the way it is. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week to talk about something. We'll figure it out.
Bye.